Pete Thamel is reporting Nebraska, who lost Trev Alberts, an alum, to Texas A&M. Nebraska's replaced Trev Alberts with Troy Dannon, who was just hired by Washington in October. And Dirt's loud laugh can be heard on his thoughts on that.
He was there for like 4 months, man.
That is unbelievable that this would happen to them.
He just lost his head coach, hired another head coach, and said, peace, I'm out of here.
We have two scenarios to run. Just throw them. Who's more? What is more likely? Husky fan is pissed, or Scott Barnes is excited to reapply?
Yeah, Scott Barnes is throwing his hat back in the ring.
Even though they didn't want him, and he's like, well, I'm bowing out of this. It's like, Scott, they didn't want you. No offense. They didn't want you.
Did they or did they not offer you the job?
Yeah, you can't fire me. I quit.
That's right. I'm not showing up on Monday.
This is exactly part of the problem, is these people, not him, not Troy, but these people of power in this sport are just running around, whoring themselves out at the biggest bag they can get, and then they get to a mic and they say, the kids are just out for the money. Yeah.
So are you.
Do you see the role models in the sport? Troy Dannon hadn't even painted a living room, and he's gone from Washington. He's off to Nebraska.
Well, I think this brings in a whole nother fear. And I brought this up when they hired Jed Fish, but I think the biggest question that a lot of us had about that hire was...
Oh, I think if Florida season's bad, I know where you're going. I'm not going to be shocked if Jed Fish bolts for Florida.
Well, one of the biggest things that people cite with head coach legacy and all that is they want to be in lockstep with their athletic director. And whether that be you have a relationship with them beforehand, that athletic director hired you, like there has to be a good relationship there. This guy just hired Jed Fish. We all remember the videos. He flew down to Arizona. They're signing the contract in his kitchen. And now 2 months later, he's bolting for another job. I think that brings that fear in of like, dude, if Florida... tail spins next year and we have a decent year, or Jed Fish shows that he can win here, he's probably going to be bouncing for the next gig as well. It's one thing to lose Kalen DeBoer to Alabama. And you say, all right, you throw your hands in the air, it's Alabama. They're paying him nearly $12 million a year. How the hell are we going to compete with that? That's fair. Could have signed an extension in Seattle, decided not to. That's fair. This is to move from Seattle, Washington to Lincoln, Nebraska. And I have family that lives in Nebraska. I've been there. We've been to a game there. It's a beautiful town, beautiful stadium.
I wouldn't know. You made me leave because you were too pissed that your Ducks lost.
I mean, kick a PAT. What are we doing here? He's moving from Seattle, Washington to Lincoln, Nebraska.
And it's the same conference. So it's not a conference upgrade here. At least Alberts could go, well, the SEC is the juggernaut. I want to be in it. Okay, you left your alma mater for that. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm truly not saying this to put salt in a wound or to twist a knife. I promise you. The reality is this. Washington, if they didn't know it now, absolutely learning stepping stone. You lost your coach in 2 seasons, and you lost an AD in 6 months.
They lost another AD, by the way, who had been in Washington forever.
Yeah, for another Big Ten job, by the way.
But at least that one, again, you're like, all right, you're going to USC. It's USC.
Yeah.
Like, how do you say no to that? Go live in sunshine.
Yes,
I understand. At least
understand
makes sense. This is Nebraska. I actually really enjoyed him, too. I watched a lot of his interviews. During the whole Kalen DeBoer, Jed Fish stuff, he seemed like a genuinely good person. He had some great jokes about not seeing his family for a week.
Oh, who's to say he's not? I mean, I don't get this move, but... Man, I don't know the nuances and the in and outs of these universities. I think that's the hardest thing for guys like us and for fans is we just see these jobs and like you say this, it's Lincoln versus Seattle. And to a certain degree, I think you're kind of right? Like, where would you rather live? I'd rather live in Seattle.
Yes.
But I don't know the inner workings. I don't know how the financials work for Washington. And look, I know Trev Alberts just left and money is probably part of it. But I know how dire and committed Nebraska is to wanting to be good and great.
It's also a desperation move. Trev Alberts was a legacy. He was an alum, and they had egg on their face last week when he left for A&M because he was the guy that they felt like had made the right football hire. He kept Hoiberg around, who now has them in the tournament.
They just got him extended, by the way, on a 2-year deal.
They put this new plan out to finish their stadium, which, okay, we're doing more to that stadium.
Their women's hoops team is really good this year. Yeah. They're taking a step. Like, they have got programs all around that are good. It's It's a good athletic institution.
And you lose him to A&M, and it's like, wait, what? Huh? You went to Nebraska. How could you possibly leave us? So they had to make an all-in move, and evidently this is. This is why I just roll my eyes. Like we just talked in the last segment or the last half hour about the Saban, all kids care about his money stuff, and it's like, dude, I am so tired of that crap. Every athletic director is the same. Nearly every head coach is the same.
Yours isn't.
Well, for now, I hope he's not, but for now he's not.
You don't think A&M? So you don't think like the A&Ms of the world when they've needed this job, Alberts is a good hire by most people's thoughts? I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But Mullins has been in Eugene for quite some time. You don't think he's been called on some of these gigs?
I mean, I know he has. He's flirted with leaving a couple of times.
But he hasn't. But he hasn't. He stayed so far.
So maybe, but you also have the ability at Oregon to offer stock in Nike and different things that can incentivize you to want to stick around and not take another job. It's a very unique spot that way. But like we just had this a week or two ago. I was cracking up when I read this when I was on leave. The running back coach from Ohio State just left to take the job at Michigan. Same job. Mm-hmm. Just left to go to Michigan.
Got more money, probably.
Biggest rival that you could possibly have in the entire planet. Yeah. And just like the week spring football is starting, says, you know what? All right, I'm going to go coach up there. Like, there are no morals, there are no rules, there are no guardrails for everybody.
Yeah.
But players want to transfer, and Caden Proctor went to Iowa, and now back to Alabama. The sport is broken. Like, stop, dude. Everybody does this. We need to have rules for everybody if you want to have rules.
Pete Thamel, Nebraska finalizing a 6-year deal to make Washington Athletic Director Troy Dannon the school's new athletic director. The hiring of Dannon gives Nebraska an immediate replacement for Trev Alberts, who left for A&M last week. Let me see. Thamel might have had a follow-up. It also gives the school an experienced AD who brings a strong football background and both Midwest ties and immediate familiarity with the Big Ten. Dan came to Washington in early October and oversaw a busy few months. There's not a plural there.
No.
Busy month.
Month-I.
He hired Jed Fish and then said, peace up, A-Town down, I'm gone. I'm going to Nebraska. I want to thank our P1 Brian for tagging us in that tweet. I missed it live, and so that's how I saw it. I don't know how Softy's going to spin this one. We're still the greatest thing in the North. Tough day.
It's always tough when you make jokes about another school, and then you got to look in the mirror and realize they've come full circle. And all those stepping stone jokes over the years with Taggart and Cristobal.
Do you remember that,
Oops.
That 2-day moment when they were dancing on Oregon's grave because Dan Lanning was gone because a K-Val guy was like, I saw him there.
He was in Tuscaloosa last night.
But you're in Eugene. How did you see him? a buddy saw him and told me. He was watching movies with his children.
A friend of a friend saw him on campus, man. It's him. It's Fur.
I'd like to apologize for not having the right sourcing there. Does that guy still have that job?
I believe he still has his job.
Unbelievable, man.
I think he's still kicking down there.
He just straight up lied about it, seeing or knowing Dan Lanning was in Tuscaloosa.
The entire college football world exploded for about 12 hours because some random K-Val guy said he's in Tuscaloosa, and everybody believed it.
Dan Lanning got to make a great promotional video out of that.
I mean, this is tough, dude. This is tough.
I don't know who you hire. I don't know what.
You go make another move, you're going to find another guy, but but
it's an AD that didn't get to make the most important hire. This guy he got to make the most important hire.
They just fired their basketball coach too, and then left. They haven't even hired a new one yet, have they?
Well, that might be actually the bright spot for a new AD is like, hey, go pick your hoops guy, whoever that is, go hire him. Which, if you're Wazoo, you better hope it's not Kyle Smith.
Don't get your coach.
Because now we've got hurt feelings in the state 2 times over.
Yeah, then we're not playing the Apple Cup anymore. That game is canceled.
Damn, dude, this is brutal.
I mean, it's tough. And I think when it happens multiple times, like I went through this with head coaches at Oregon, then that fear is there now with everybody.
Oh,
once it happens to you twice, you're not going to trust anybody.
No.
There's always that sure, but you're never going to fully buy in.
I'm not trying to just be even here with Hurt, but that's kind of been my point with Lanning. Is Lanning can say whatever he wants, right? But don't dive in. These guys are all paid liars.
Yes.
It's what the job requires is to be a liar. And so the video's fun, and I'm here for life. It's my last job. It's Yeah. And then Bama sucks with the bore and goes, here's the biggest of bags. And you're like, well.
Here's $17 million a year to come be our head coach.
You can be closer to home. Right. And nobody should trust anybody in this sport. It's unbelievable. They're all liars.
They're all looking for the next opportunity and the next big bag, despite lying to your face as a fan.
All right. Troy Dannon gone from UW after 6 months. He's off to Nebraska. So now Washington, who just hired a new football coach, who may be eyeing the Florida gig, because he's already a liar, now has to hire an AD. We'll see where they go with that.